this podcast, the Idlecast.
It's a Heidel minicast. And now, Scott Clark.
Champing, Chomping, Proud, Prideful, Converse, and Conversate.
If the Heidelcast helps you, will you help us keep it going? Please make the coffer clink by clicking on the PayPal link or by sending a check to Heidelberg Reformation Association, 1637 East Valley Parkway, number 391, Escondido, California, 92027.
You know what you never see on the Heidel blog is pop-ups. I go to some really wonderful websites and I'm reading a really interesting article that's got my attention and I'm getting 3 or 4 paragraphs down, or maybe, you pull the page up a little bit. And as soon as I do that, bang, there's a pop-up. Do I want to subscribe? Do I want to do this? Do I want to do that? No, what I want to do is read the article that you've interrupted with this pop-up. It's very frustrating. So we don't do that because we respect you. We know that if you clicked on a link and you're reading an article, that's what you want to do. Now, we'd like you to sign up, and we've tried to make it as easy as possible for you to do that, and thousands of you have done that. I just want you to know that we put your experience first, and we try to do that on the Heidel blog, and we do it on the Heidelcast.
The Heidelcast.
Chomping versus champing at the bit, and then we'll look at another issue here in a moment. Okay, as I've been saying in this series, this Grammar Guerrilla series, language evolves. We know that, you know that, I know that, and often this process is driven by popular usage, and champing versus chomping is one of those instances. The popular usage, at least in North America, and particularly in the United States, chomping has replaced champing at the bit. And I think it's so far gone that it's beyond correcting. I'm just mentioning it just to illustrate that I do recognize that language changes. I know I'm one of those guys saying, stop standing history, as somebody said about William F. Buckley, that he was standing astride or history or something like that and yelling stop. Whether that was true, I don't know, but it was an arresting image. Anyway, I know that's how I probably come off when I complain about the abuse of various expressions, but this is one that I don't particularly care much about. I just think it's interesting to note, and maybe you'd like to know, that the original and traditional form, going back to at least the early 16th century, maybe the 1530s, is champ, C-H-A-M-P, like he's a champ. No, not the same sense, but the same word, or at least the same spelling. So champ and champing. So people used to say champing at the bit. And by the way, they did that, in my lifetime since the early 16th century into the mid to late 20th century. So it refers to impatience. Now, that being said, even in the 16th century, the verb to champ also referred to chewing, as does obviously chomping. 1638, Daniel Featley, the Anglican minister, theologian, sort of awkward delegate to the Westminster Assembly, who ended up being thrown in jail by the Assembly because they suspected he was a spy, and they caught him trying to correspond with the king. And of course, the Parliament was at war with the king, but nevertheless, they asked him to write for them while he was in jail. So they didn't like his politics, but they liked his theology. Anyway, he used it to mean chewing, champing. The difference seems to lie in the distinction, and now this is interesting too. This might help you, because I struggle with this and always have, ever since I asked Bob Gorman to explain it to me in probably 81 or something like that. But anyway, long time ago. I remember we were walking across the street in downtown Lincoln, and we were in Greek together, and he said something about transitive and intransitive. And I said, I don't know anything about that. Please explain it. And he tried, and I was too thick to get it. So this is one of those things that I always have to look up. It's like North Galatians versus South Galatians when you're trying to interpret Galatians. What view do I hold? I don't know. I have to look it up every time. Anyway, it's like that with transitive and intransitive. So the difference between champing and chomping, or champing as eating and champing at the bit, seems to be the distinction between its transitive use as distinct from its intransitive use. Used absolutely or intransitively, it is champing at the bit. That goes back to 1852. A transitive verb, this is the distinction between transitive and intransitive, passes its action to its object. I hear this all the time in sports talk radio. Here's a case where listening to sports talk radio has actually helped me because they're always talking about the transitive property. So if Team A beat Team C and Team B lost to Team C or something, you can use the transitive property to impute a potential future victory to one of the teams. Anyway, that's where I mostly hear that. So a transitive verb passes its action to its object. An intransitive verb does not. In this case, the bit is not in a state of having been champed. The action remains with the subject, the one champing. So a book is read, that's transitive, right? The property of having been read is communicated to the book. But a bit is not champed. It's intransitive. The expression chomping at the bit arose in the United States in the 1930s. It's an easy thing to go from the A in champing to the O in chomping, just a change of a vowel. In the modern period, judging by what I hear, most American English speakers are not aware of the older expression champing at the bit. I've heard a few people in recent years using it, but almost always it's chomping that I hear. It may be now that using champing might seem pretentious. That wouldn't stop me from doing it. And I'm not champing at the bit to bring it back. But I hope you, dear listener, will not swallow the newer usage, at least without being aware of the change.
Ladies and gentlemen, Scott Clark.
The Idlecast.
And there's another issue of word usage that I'd like to discuss with you, and that is proud versus prideful and converse versus conversate. Title blog reader Barbara asks, quoting here, "Is conversate a word? I am a nurse, and I see other nurses using it in their progress notes. For example, the resident was seen conversating with her roommate," close quote, and close quote. So there was a quote within a quote there. Well, Barbara, that's a good question. In English, verbs, nouns, and adjectives can be formed with the ate, A-T-E, suffix. For example, the verb to perambulate means to walk about, or the noun licentiate. You can find online a list of existing English words with the ATE suffix. It's borrowed from Latin. And as I've mentioned before, English is heavily influenced by Latin. Because so many words are formed using the ATE suffix, it's a natural impulse to sort of elaborate on it. And Americans, as I've mentioned in this series, have a tendency to add superfluous prefixes and suffixes for emphasis. And we also seem to have a facility for creating new words. Technically, those are known as neologisms. Sometimes this works out well. I like the new word hangry. It isn't brand new, but it's relatively new. And that means to be hungry, and so hungry that one becomes angry. And I've had that experience. Maybe you've had that too. I had it the other day, actually. I had to drive 40 minutes for lunch after a really strenuous workout. And by the time I got to where I was going, I was angry. And I probably ate more than I should have. So there's not an obvious word in English that does the same thing as hangry. One of my children, as far as I know, made up the word prenormous. So I like that very much. That's a word that we use in our house. But there are words that are unnecessary, and conversate is one of those. We already have the word to converse or conversation. We have those words. We don't need conversate. And that's the word that the nurses should use in their progress notes. The resident was seen conversing with her roommate. The verb to converse means to talk with one another or to engage in conversation. It does everything that conversate does without the unpleasant side effects of making other people slightly nauseous. It's like, oh, why are you using that word? We don't need that word. Why did you make it up? It's kind of a unpleasant word, I think, just because it's so unnecessary.
Idlecast.
We should also clear up the confusion that reigns in sports talk radio and television between prideful and proud. When a team is losing by a large margin, something my football team knows a little about, but they continue to compete, they do so because they are a proud program or because they are proud of their school, or they have a proud tradition, not because they are necessarily prideful. The adjective proud refers to a deep feeling of satisfaction or pleasure based upon achievement. The Nebraska Cornhusker football team has a proud history. It was one of the most successful American college football teams from the 1890s until the outbreak of World War II. It was decimated by the draft, and the team fell on hard times for 20 years until the hiring of Bob Devaney in 1961 or 62. I think 62, actually. From that point until 2001, the team won 5 national championships and produced 3 Heisman Trophy winners and several Outland Trophy winners and many All-Americans. Cornhusker fans are justifiably proud of that tradition. Prideful, however, is related to pride and proud. It has a different meaning. To be prideful is a vice. It means to have excessive self-esteem. To be sure, the adjective proud can also have this sense. See, for example, James 4:6 and Proverbs 3:34. God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. In this case, the substantive adjective, that is an adjective used as a noun, has the same sense as prideful. And this is not nitpicking. By freely substituting prideful for proud, sports media figures are helping not only to create linguistic confusion, but they are unintentionally robbing us of one sense of the word proud and abusing the word prideful. As always, I understand that language changes, but as I keep saying, not all changes are good and happy. A flood is a change, but not usually a good change. That's why we build dikes and levees and fill sandbags. So think of your humble grammar gorilla as your grammar sandbagger.
Thanks for listening. Tune in tomorrow for more from the Heidelcast, brought to you by HeidelbergReformationAssociation.org. Don't forget, when the coin in the coffer clinks, the cost of bandwidth shrinks. Copyright Heidelberg Reformation Association. All rights reserved. This is a Heidel Media production.
The best podcast